Welcome to Always Real Talk. I'm Kwame Brown. In our studio, we have our good friend and our expert analyst on all things related to tenant and landlord. She's one of the top experts in the region. Karissa, welcome back to Always Real Talk.
Thank you so much for having me back. I am always honored to be here with you, Kwame.
Hey, well, I'm always excited. I always hear something different and new every time I talk to you. Hey, you can check her out every Monday. She has a phenomenal FaceTime show that comes out. It's very, very, very informative, and she's very detailed. So, Karissa, look, we're all listening very, very carefully. We've heard the President of the United States say, hey, look, we're going to stop these evictions. If he has to sign an executive order, he's going to stop these evictions. We've heard Congress say we have to do something to make sure that people aren't evicted from their home, which, in some areas, it's up in the air right now. Where are we exactly now as it relates to people, those being tenants, and their rights in terms of evictions and having to pay their landlord even if they don't have the money? Where are we?
Well, in the District of Columbia, Kwame, that's a great question. We are still under the state of emergency. DC Mayor Mario Bowser extended the state of emergency through October the 9th. So the last time we spoke, it was extended through July the 24th. So she's given tenants more time. That's residential tenants as well as commercial tenants. But what exactly does that mean? During this time, during the state of emergency, landlords are not able to take tenants to court for non-payment of rent. And with that, once the state of emergency has ended, landlords are still required to offer or invite their tenants into, well, to allow them to enter into a repayment agreement. Um, the most important thing that I want landlords to know about the repayment agreement, it must be for 12 months unless the tenant agrees to a shorter term. The payments must be equal amounts. So let's say the tenant owes $3,000, right? The payments must be spread out over that 12-month period, and the payments must be in the equal amount. So they can't pay $500 one month, $600 another month. They must be the same exact amount each month. Now, if they enter into the repayment agreement, and if the tenant does not keep their payments as agreed, then that landlord is allowed to go to court. So that's where we are. It gives, like I said, it does give the tenant a little more time to pay the delinquent amount that's owed. But here's the thing, Kwame, not all tenants are going to qualify for the repayment agreement because, of course, they must demonstrate that they have been financially impacted because of the pandemic. So that's going to require them to produce some information or some documents such as pay stubs or bank statements, maybe a letter from their employer. And then that's the opportunity for the landlord to determine if in fact they are eligible to enter into the repayment agreement.
Well, that's going to be interesting that you said that because you have some that have been laid off and they're receiving unemployment. So I take it they could take their unemployment statement, they could show it to their landlord, and their landlord can then determine whether they're able to pay their rent, right? And they've been laid off. And then you have those that might be working, but they're not working as many hours as they used to work because of COVID. So then therefore they can produce that from a pay. Then you have entrepreneurs, right? Those people that are just entrepreneurs and they're contractors and they no longer have the contract. And I guess it's up to the landlord, or I guess my question to you, because you're the expert, are there certain documents that the landlord can require you to show, or is it this landlord could say this and that landlord could say that, and this depends on who your landlord is?
Well, it just depends on how they're paid, how they are tracking their income. Maybe their income can be tracked or traced through their bank statements. Maybe they can provide bank statements to show that there has been a decrease in their revenue. That's an easy way, and I think that's the most consistent way for entrepreneurs to show that they have been financially impacted, basically through the bank statements. Because if they're not receiving pay stubs, they're not, they may not be W-2 entrepreneurs. Some are, but some are not. So whatever source they previously used to provide their proof of income, their proof of revenue, that's what they should be able to show the landlord, to show that, it's impacted their income in
Okay.
the business.
Okay, and we know it's once again it's been hot. We know people are concerned. If someone has received a phone call or a letter from their landlord right now, you mentioned last time that the courts are closed. Is that correct?
That's correct. The courts are still not hearing cases at this time for non-payment of rent.
Okay, and let's say you have someone who says, "Look, my rent used to be $2,200 a month. My income has dropped, but I have been trying to pay my landlord what I can, so I've been paying $800 a month, whatever I can pay, because some people still that's what they want to do. They want to pay, and then now they can't pay anymore, or they decided or heard that they don't have to pay, so they stop paying. Are they in jeopardy because they were trying to do the right thing for a little bit of time?
So that's where it really gets a little tricky. And one of the things that I share with my clients and my colleagues as pertains to being housing providers is that if you treat it like a business, it will pay you like a business. I have found, unfortunately, through the pandemic, that some landlords are not integral. They are not willing to work with their tenants, and they are requiring tenants to pay or leave, to pay or get out. And they've actually, some unfortunately who don't know the law, have taken it upon themselves to type up an eviction notice to say that the tenant must leave because they can't, for instance, pay this $2,200 a month. They're trying to pay $1,500, and the landlord is trying to hold them responsible for the full amount. Here's what I would say to tenants who are facing that sort of situation: just document your attempts. If you're trying to make your payment, the landlord is refusing, follow up with something in writing. Still send your payment if you're able to mail it, if you're able to pay it online. But if not, but definitely make sure that you have it available so that when the courts are open, if the landlord should try to pull anything tricky, you have your documents, you have your money available, whether it's a money order or a cashier's check, personal check. Just make sure that the funds are still available because rent is still due. And unfortunately, we are facing a situation that people have never experienced before. And so some landlords have tried to strong arm tenants for the full amount due. And we just recommend that, allow them to pay what they can, work with the tenants, because it's much better if we can all work together.
Now, when this is over, because at some point this will be over, right? You can't go on forever not paying your rent. You can't go on forever, doling out money. We all know that. This will come to an end. And when it comes to an end, under the current guidelines, will their rent be due once the moratorium is lifted, and then they can go into a 12-month plan with their landlord, or should they be trying to figure out a 12-month plan with their landlord now?
If they can enter into the repayment agreement now, that's ideal. But if they are not sure, then I would say definitely wait. Because if they enter, so here's the thing: let's say they enter into the repayment agreement now, and if they skip a month or they don't keep up with the terms of the agreement, that landlord can take them to court at the first day the court is allowing cases to be filed. So I want people to really think about it. Okay, am I able to commit to monthly payments right now? Maybe they are not. So maybe now is the time to really think about um, obtaining employment or income if they can. But here's the thing: not everybody's going to go back to work. So this is the time period that a lot of people are really, looking at what they are really going to do, if they're going to be employed, if unemployment is enough to pay the rent. Those are a lot of things to take into consideration. And then especially if there are children and families relying on them. So they have to look at their budget, and just make realistic decisions based off of their income and what they could afford.
I mean, I just have a feeling that, some people are just really enjoying this, right? They're saying, hey, I was making more money on unemployment than I was working. This is working out great for me. I'm getting $900 a week or whatever that is, $4,000 a month. It's working for me, right? I don't have a job, and they don't realize that trying to find a job when this is all over is still going to be very, very, very difficult. You have people that are in homes, and I always have to look at things a little funny, right? When they say, "Don't worry about paying your mortgage, don't worry about anything. When it's all over, you can pay me later." Well, I don't know what that means. If does that mean you're gonna come take my house if I can't make the payment, or if I set up a payment plan and I still don't have a job, right? But the economy's coming back and everything's back open, but the openness don't mean I can go back to work because my job is not bringing all the people back that they once had there before. They've downsized, and then it's time for me to repay it. And some of these repayment plans are on top of what the mortgage is. Of
That's
what the rent is. Is that correct?
correct.
And that's what I want people to know. They're like, oh no, now they're going to put, I don't think rent's on the back end, right? You have a mortgage, some mortgage company saying, we're just going to put this on the back end and you continue to make your payments. And instead of you having a 15-year mortgage, you have a 15-year and 6-month mortgage, right? Or something like that. Renting is something totally different. It's not like your landlord is going to say, you're supposed to pay me $2,000 a month and you can get on a plan for $500 a month for 12 months, and then 12 months later you can go pay 12. That's not how it works, is it?
No, the rent is
Okay.
still due. So it's the rent plus whatever the amount is according to the repayment agreement. So rent is still due.
So
No one has paid,
let's
no
kind of
one
do a little
has
math here, right? Let's do a little math here. If your rent is $1 a month, right, and you don't pay it for 6 months, so that's $6 that you owe in the back, and this pandemic is over, you still have to pay your dollar, and then you would have to pay that $6 spread out over 12 months
That's
on
correct.
top of your dollar.
On top of the rent. That's correct.
Right. I want people to get that. I'm going to say that again. When this pandemic is over, because it will be over, you are going to have to pay your rent plus whatever you owe, which can be stretched out no longer than 12 months. So people can calculate what that's going to be now. I know all these people want people to go back and spend money in the economy and spend, but I suggest you actually save because you are going to owe. And I think people aren't clear about that, and that's why it's so important to have you on the show and have you do your segment on what's coming, so people understand this is really coming at you. So I would suspect somewhere close to Christmas, you're going to get that wonderful letter from your landlord saying, okay, starting January, you're going to owe me that dollar plus $12. So you owe me an extra dollar. You might owe me $2 a month for 12 months to catch up. Is that something that's possible?
That's possible. It just depends on the delinquent amount, and absolutely, that's possible. And so we are going to see a tsunami of evictions. And that's the unfortunate part about it.
And the unfortunate part about it, when you see those evictions, especially in this area, they're going to be with people that look like us, right?
Absolutely.
And you start talking about, grandma, you start talking about auntie, you start talking about uncle, you start talking about, those people, especially, that have been laid off and are not going to be able to find a job. The question is going to be how they're going to continue to live. And I know people say, you're talking about the doom. Well, you got to be prepared for what's going to take place. And hopefully this gives us a chance to educate those individuals now. So is there anything you want our listeners to know?
Here's what I would like to add. It's important that especially DC law officials and lawmakers consider putting more money in the pot available for renters, rental assistance, emergency rental assistance programs, because it's going to be really bad. It's going to get really, really rough for a lot of people. And although they are holding off or they're holding back on the evictions, once the courts open back up, the evictions are going to start up again. But if there's money available, if they can put money in place and grant or funding, whatever they're going to do, that will, I guess, help a lot of people,
Oh,
and so
yeah,
that's,
most
that's
definitely.
something that I really want people to consider. Just voice your, um, express your concern to DC City Council, asking them to put more money in the pot, making sure that it is available for you as a DC resident. That is your right. You can ask for it, you can demand it. And so that's what a lot of people, I think that if a lot of people really understand that and really begin to share the information with others, then maybe you'll have more people contacting lawmakers and say, hey, listen, please put more money in the funding. There are emails going around for landlords asking landlords to also support that bill as well. So it's nothing in place right now, but it's definitely something that's needed.
Well, I know we have have a rent supplement program, and but I think you're absolutely right. In the budget, the council just passed a budget, so we're going to go back. We're going to have some people running for office, and we're going to ask them questions, and we'll have legislators on. We'll see if we can get Anita Bonds, who chairs the housing committee for the council, and who used to be my chief of staff, by the way. But I'm going to give her a call and see if she come on the show and get a clear sense, because this is coming as clear as they could see and hear us talking right now. It's going to be an issue. There's going to be a problem. And you and I know come September 1, come October 1, when a new fiscal year starts, if resources are not allocated for that, it's going to be a problem. This is just not, see, sometimes people think this is for poor people, right? They say, oh, if you're poor, then, it's going to affect you. No, this is going to affect everyone. This is going to affect people who had been working every day, that no longer have a job. This is going to be affecting people that were middle class and they're no longer middle class because both of their incomes in the household are now done. This is going to affect everyone. This is an American problem. And this is a time for us to step up the table to figure out how to fix it as a country, as a city, as the entire DMV area. I want to thank you for bringing that up, because I think people just need to know. They say, oh, we got elections coming. No, you better be asking for things that are going to be relevant, and it might not affect you. You might be watching and you be like, you know what? I got a job. I'm good. I got savings. But I know you got an uncle. I know you got an aunt. I know you got someone in your family that it's going to affect. And I guarantee you, it may affect multiple people in your family. And they're going to be coming to you, trying to get help from you to figure out how to stay in their house. So Karissa, you are always enlightening us. You're always bringing us something new, that new nugget that we need, and I really appreciate it. Is there anything else you would like to tell us? Because you're throwing them nuggets away. Throwing them out there. You got any other ones you want to share with us?
No, but I just want to encourage the rental community, the landlords as well as tenants, to work together. So you've shared that I do a weekly Facebook Live on my page, Karissa Spann on Facebook. So this week I shared information on how landlords and tenants, I encourage landlords and tenants to work together to minimize or avoid rental payment or delinquent rental disputes. There was a case, and I'm not going to go too deep into this, but there was a case up in Connecticut where a landlord and a tenant got into a dispute, and it ended up really bad because someone ended up losing their life over something that could have been worked out. And so I strongly encourage landlords and tenants to communicate. Effective communication is so important during this time. And so working together, working through it will minimize a lot of disputes. And so that's all I have for the tips that I wanted to share with the viewers on today.
No, hey, thank you very much. Once again, it's always a pleasure to have you on. There you have it. Hey, you won. You got to check her out. You know where she is, Facebook Live. Check her out on Mondays. She really, really puts on a phenomenal show. Very informative. People are asking questions. She's answering questions. I like that back and forth that you have. We look forward to having you on the show once the Congress decides what it's going to do, and what is that going to mean for those that are renting, for those that are landlords. Once again, hey, if it's always real talk, you know it's going to be real. So, I mean, you and I know that DC has, the land is valuable. And you have people with large number of units, then you have people that have 12 units. DC is the most friendly place for tenants in America. Well, I'll say in America because that's what I believe. I don't know if it's factual, but I'm going to say it anyway. That's what they are. This is a way for some of these landlords to get around this whole, tenant first right of refusal, because you can't buy your place if you can't even pay the rent and you're behind in your rent. So that's going to, make invalid their TOPA rights. So it's almost like, I'm, looking with both eyes here. I know everyone's saying, hey, don't worry about paying, don't worry about paying, don't worry about paying. Some people don't want you to pay.
Right, absolutely.
You're nodding your head.
No, I'm saying absolutely. I'm in complete agreement. This is going to, yeah, this is going to go in so many different directions here. Just because tenants are not paying their rent, the rights that they will not have because they are giving up their right by not paying their rent. It's going to be
Now,
crazy.
now let me ask you a question. When you're not paying your rent because there was a moratorium on you having to pay your rent, does that, and I don't know the question, we're going to get some experts on the show to talk about, does that take away your rights, your TOPA rights now because you're not paying?
Now that's interesting. I haven't seen a lot on that. That's interesting, but definitely let's do some research on that to see how that goes because people are still selling. There is nothing to prevent someone from selling their property.
Right. And right now is the best
And
time to sell your apartment building. If you're a landlord, you'd be like, hey, I'm going to sell. I'm going to give y'all first right of
absolutely.
refusal. Well, since all y'all getting that stimulus check and since all y'all can't, pay your rent, so I know you can't afford to, pay for your condo because you can't pay your rent. Great time for the landlord to say, I'm going to go ahead and sell my building. The court's not open. So how do you fight it in the courts?
That's a great question. I'm interested to find out how this is going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of this is an interesting combination here.
Yeah, it is.
The TOPA rights could be,
Yep.
we a violation of the TOPA rights. I just have to keep all my eyes on what's going on here because you're living there and now you're gone. How'd you leave?
Right.
And yeah, this is, and the people that are affected the most are the people that need it the most.
That's
You
so
know,
true.
But side note, all these people talking about they don't like welfare. Everyone getting a stimulus check, you on welfare. Hey, just want you to know, if you're getting a stimulus check, you on welfare. Welcome to welfare. Everybody talking how bad it is to be on welfare, how much it is to get a government handout. We got a lot of different people getting government handouts right now, so they all on welfare too. So that's my sidebar humor for tonight. All right, I gotta go. I gotta go. Good to see you. Okay.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.